You've been spying on me. But why? What are you up to?
The marriage started unraveling the night I found the camera in the smoke detector. Not the finding itself, that came later, but the night my gut first whispered that something in our pristine townhouse in the suburbs outside Baltimore wasn't right. I had been married to Dominic Reid for 7 years. 7 years of what I believed was a solid partnership, the kind of marriage my mother always told me to pray for. Dominic was an IT security consultant, brilliant with technology, patient with my questions about passwords and firewalls and all the digital mysteries that made my head spin. I was a middle school English teacher, more comfortable with lesson plans and parent conferences than anything involving code or circuitry. We lived in a 3-bedroom brick townhouse with a finished basement where Dominic kept his home office. A modest but comfortable life. Before the story continues, please leave us a comment telling us which state or city you are watching from. Do not forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you more exciting stories. I should have been grateful. I was grateful until the night I heard him talking to someone in the cellar at 2 in the morning. The voice wasn't loud. It drifted up through the heating vents like smoke, just fragments of sentences that pulled me from sleep. I lay there in our bed, the sheets cool where Dominic should have been, listening to the low rumble of his voice punctuated by silences that felt wrong. He wasn't on the phone. The pauses were too long, too deliberate, like he was waiting for responses from someone in the room with him. My heart started doing this thing where it felt like it was beating in my throat. I slid out of bed, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The house was dark except for a thin line of light bleeding from under the basement door at the end of the hallway. I stood there in my nightgown, one hand pressed against the wall for balance, straining to hear. His voice rose slightly, frustrated. "I told you, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too trusting." A pause. Then sharper. "No, she never goes down there at night. She's terrified of the dark." My blood turned to ice. He was talking about me, to someone, about me, in our cellar, at 2 in the morning. I should have confronted him right then, thrown open that door, and demanded to know who the hell he was talking to and why he was discussing me like I was some kind of problem to be managed. But fear is a strange thing. It roots you in place, turns your muscles to water, makes you second-guess what your ears just heard. Instead, I crept back to bed and lay there rigid, staring at the ceiling until I heard his footsteps on the basement stairs 30 minutes later. He slipped back into bed beside me, his body warm against mine, his breathing evening out into sleep within minutes. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, he was the same Dominic he'd always been. He kissed my forehead before his coffee had finished brewing, asked about my plans for the day, reminded me he had a client meeting that evening and would be home late. His dark eyes were clear, his smile easy. There was no trace of the man who'd been whispering about me in the dark. I watched him over the rim of my mug, searching for cracks in the facade, but found none. He was either an exceptional liar or I was losing my mind. I spent that entire day at work in a fog. My students noticed. One of them, a sharp girl named Destiny, asked if I was feeling okay after I'd assigned the same page of reading twice. I forced a smile and blamed it on lack of sleep, which wasn't entirely a lie. The truth was more complicated. The truth was that I'd spent 7 years building a life with a man I was starting to realize I didn't know at all. When I got home that afternoon, the house was empty. Dominic's car was gone, the client meeting he'd mentioned. I stood in the kitchen, my keys still in my hand, staring at the basement door. She never goes down there at night. She's terrified of the dark. It was true. I hated the basement, had avoided it since we moved in. It was Dominic's domain, his office, his space. He'd finished it himself, installed the carpeting and the drywall, set up his computers and his servers and all the equipment that hummed and blinked in the dark like a small digital city. I never questioned it. Why would I? He worked from home 3 days a week. Of course he needed an office. I walked to the basement door and opened it. The stairs descended into darkness, the automatic light sensor apparently not working. Or maybe he'd disabled it. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I found the light switch and flipped it. Nothing happened. I flipped it again. Still nothing. The basement remained black, a yawning void that seemed to breathe. My hand trembled as I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the wooden steps, the gray carpet at the bottom, the corner of Dominic's desk. I descended slowly, each step creaking under my weight, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. The air was cooler down here, tinged with the smell of electronics and something else, something faintly chemical that I couldn't identify. The beam from my phone swept across the room. Dominic's desk was neat, his monitors dark, his keyboard aligned perfectly parallel to the edge of the desk. Everything in its place, too perfect, too controlled. I walked further into the room, my flashlight dancing across the walls, the filing cabinets, the built-in bookshelves. Then I saw them. Small red lights. Dozens of them scattered throughout the room, blinking in synchronized rhythm like a constellation of tiny stars. I stepped closer to the nearest one. It was mounted in the corner where the wall met the ceiling, a small black device no bigger than my thumb. A camera. My breath caught. I spun around, my flashlight beam jerking across the space, and now that I knew what to look for, I saw them everywhere. In the smoke detector above the desk, behind the decorative plant on the shelf, nestled in the crown molding, positioned to cover every angle of the room. 7 cameras, maybe more, all pointing inward, all recording. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. This was his office. Why would he need cameras in his own office? Unless he wasn't the one being recorded. I thought about the conversation I'd overheard. She never goes down there at night. My hands started shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Slowly, dreading what I might find, I turned and looked up at the ceiling, at the area directly above where I now stood. There, recessed into the ceiling tile, was a larger camera, its lens pointed directly at the stairs, at the entrance, at anyone who came down. I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs, don't remember slamming the basement door behind me. I found myself in the kitchen, gasping for air, my phone clutched in my white-knuckled grip. The house suddenly felt different, smaller, like the walls were pressing in. I looked around with new eyes, my gaze traveling across the kitchen, the living room, the hallway. The smoke detector in the kitchen, the digital clock on the microwave, the decorative mirror in the hallway, the air freshener plugged into the outlet by the stairs. Any of them could hide a camera. All of them could. My husband, the IT security consultant, the man who specialized in protecting people from digital threats, had turned our home into a surveillance network. And I was the one being watched. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I needed to know how deep this went. I needed to know what I was dealing with. But I also needed to be smart. If Dominic knew I'd discovered the cameras, if he was monitoring them remotely, he would know I was onto him. I had to assume he was watching. I had to assume every move I made from this moment forward was being recorded. I set my phone on the counter, face down, and walked to the bathroom. I closed the door, turned on the shower to mask any sound, and sat on the edge of the tub. My mind raced through the last few months, looking for signs I'd missed. Dominic's increased interest in my schedule, always asking what time I'd be home, who I'd be with. The way he'd insisted on upgrading all our home devices, the smart thermostat, the video doorbell, the voice assistant in every room. His suggestion that I use his old laptop after mine died, how helpful he'd been setting it up, installing all my apps, syncing all my accounts. God, I'd been so naive. I'd handed him access to everything, my email, my texts, my location through my phone, my Amazon purchases, my bank accounts. Every digital footprint I left he could track. I thought about the camera in the basement pointed at the stairs. He knew I never went down there, but he'd put cameras there anyway, which meant he was waiting, watching, preparing for the moment I finally did. The question that kept circling my mind was simple and terrifying. Why? Why would my husband, a man I'd loved and trusted for 7 years, surveil his own wife? What was he looking for? What did he think I was hiding? Or worse, what was he hiding? The shower continued to run, steam filling the small bathroom, fogging the mirror. I pulled out my phone, keeping it angled away from where a camera might be, and opened the browser. I cleared the search history first, then navigated to a private window. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What do you even search for in a situation like this? Signs your husband is spying on you? How to detect hidden cameras? What to do if you're being surveilled? Each search felt dangerous, like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs that would lead right back to me. Instead, I did something smarter. I texted my best friend, Simone. I kept it casual, normal. Hey girl, you free for drinks tomorrow? Need to catch up. Her response came within seconds. Always. What's wrong? I could picture her face, the way her eyebrows would draw together in concern. Simone had known me since college. She could read me better than anyone. I typed back, nothing wrong, just miss you. Want to hear about this new student drama. It was plausible. I often vented to her about work, but Simone would know something was off. She would hear it in my voice tomorrow, see it in my eyes. And most importantly, she was a paralegal at a law firm downtown. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it would be her. I deleted the text thread, cleared it from the recently deleted folder, then turned off my phone completely. It felt like cutting a lifeline, but I couldn't risk Dominic tracking my location or monitoring my messages in real time. When I finally emerged from the bathroom, I'd composed my face into something resembling normalcy. I made dinner, chicken and rice, Dominic's favorite. I set the table. I poured wine. I played the role of the loving wife in the stage play of our marriage. He came home at 8:30, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. He kissed my cheek, complimented the food, asked about my day. I smiled and lied. Told him about a funny incident in my third period class, about the department meeting that had run long, about the new novel we were starting next week. He nodded in all the right places, laughed at my story, refilled my wine glass. We could have been any couple in any suburb in America, sharing dinner and conversation at the end of a long day. Except I knew he was performing too. Every smile calculated, every touch deliberate. We were two actors in our own home, both pretending everything was fine. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I lay awake beside him, listening to his breathing. I thought about all the nights before this one, all the times I'd slept peacefully while he watched me through hidden lenses. The violation of it made my skin crawl. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of movement. The red numbers on the bedside clock read 1:47 a.m. Dominic's side of the bed was empty, the sheets thrown back. I held perfectly still, my eyes adjusted to the darkness, and listened. Footsteps. Going down the stairs. I waited 30 seconds, then slipped out of bed and crept to the bedroom door. The house was dark, but I could see the thin line of light under the basement door again. I pressed my ear against it and heard his voice, low and urgent. No, I'm telling you, she doesn't know. She's not smart enough to figure it out. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not smart enough. 7 years of marriage, and that's what he thought of me. The cameras are working perfectly, he continued. I've got full coverage of the house. If she does anything suspicious, I'll know immediately. A pause. Then, look, I've been patient. But we need to move soon. I can't keep up this charade forever. Charade. Our marriage was a charade. I backed away from the door on trembling legs. I had to get out, had to think, had to plan, but I couldn't let him know I knew. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was up against. I returned to bed and lay there, forcing my breathing to stay even, playing the role of the sleeping wife while my mind spun with possibilities. Who was he talking to? What were they planning? And most terrifying of all, what was he waiting for me to do that required round-the-clock surveillance? When he finally came back to bed, I didn't move, didn't react when he settled in beside me. I counted his breaths until they evened out into sleep. Only then did I allow myself to cry, silent tears sliding down my temples and into my hair. By the time dawn broke, I had made a decision. I would be smarter than he thought I was. I would find out what he was planning, and I would protect myself, no matter what it took. The morning light filtered through the curtains, painting everything in shades of gray. Dominic stretched beside me, yawned, reached for his phone on the nightstand. His morning routine, unchanged. Coffee first, then shower, then the careful ritual of dressing in his business casual uniform. I watched him through half-closed eyes, cataloging every movement, looking for the truth hidden beneath the mundane. In the kitchen, I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, whole wheat toast. His favorite. The performance continued. He sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing up at me with that easy smile that now looked like a mask. "You sleep okay?" he asked. It was his standard morning question. Usually I barely registered it. Today, every word felt weighted with hidden meaning. "Fine," I lied, pouring his coffee. "You?" "Like a rock." Another lie. I'd heard him creeping through the house at 2 in the morning. "I've got back-to-back meetings today," he said, accepting the mug I offered. "Might be late again tonight. Client emergency." "No problem," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'll probably grade papers." He nodded, satisfied, and returned to his phone. I busied myself at the counter, my back to him, my hands shaking as I buttered my toast. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes. Were there cameras in the kitchen? In our bedroom? In the bathroom where I'd hidden yesterday to text Simone? The paranoia was suffocating. After he left for work, I stood in the empty house and tried to think strategically. I was a middle school English teacher, not a detective, not a lawyer, not someone trained for this kind of situation. But I was smart, despite what Dominic apparently thought. I had a master's degree in education. I'd navigated school politics, dealt with difficult parents, managed classrooms full of hormonal 13-year-olds. I could handle this. I started in the bedroom. I moved slowly, methodically, examining every object with new suspicion. The alarm clock on the nightstand, it was digital, boxy, with a black screen. I picked it up, turned it over. There, in the back, a tiny pinhole opening. My stomach lurched. I set it down exactly as I'd found it, my heart hammering. The smoke detector on the ceiling. I dragged a chair over, climbed up, examined it closely. Another pinhole, barely visible unless you were looking for it. The picture frame on the dresser, the one holding our wedding photo. I lifted it carefully, tilted it. The backing was slightly thicker than it should be. I didn't open it. I didn't want to trigger any alerts if he had sensors monitoring when things were moved or accessed. Instead, I photographed everything. I used an old digital camera I'd found in the hall closet, one that didn't connect to the internet, couldn't be remotely accessed. I took pictures of each suspicious device, careful to frame them so the images would be clear, but not obvious if someone reviewed them later. It took me 3 hours to document the bedroom alone. By the time I finished, I'd identified 6 probable cameras, 6 devices recording our most intimate moments. The thought made me nauseous. I moved through the rest of the house like a ghost, invisible in my own home, documenting the surveillance network my husband had built. The living room, 3 cameras. The kitchen, 4. The bathroom, 2. Even the guest room we never used had a camera hidden in the air vent. By the time I met Simone for drinks that evening, I had photographed 23 devices. 23 violations of my privacy, my security, my life. Simone took one look at my face and knew. She didn't say anything, just pulled me into a tight hug right there in the parking lot of the wine bar. Inside, we claimed a booth in the back corner. I'd chosen this place deliberately. It was loud, crowded, full of after-work professionals unwinding. Our conversation would be impossible to overhear or record. "Talk to me," Simone said once we'd ordered. Her dark eyes were serious, concerned. "What's going on?" I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the cameras in the basement, the devices throughout the house, the late-night meetings with someone I couldn't see or hear. My voice stayed low, controlled, even as my hands shook around my wine glass. Simone listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, processing. "This is illegal," she finally said. "What he's doing, it's a violation of federal and state surveillance laws. You can't record someone in their own home without consent, especially in private spaces like bathrooms and bedrooms." "Can I use it against him?" I asked. "In a divorce?" "Absolutely. But we need to be smart about this. We need to document everything, gather evidence, and we need to figure out who he's working with and what they're planning. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app. Tell me everything you heard him say, exact words, if you can remember. I recited the fragments of conversation I'd overheard, watching her type rapidly. She doesn't suspect anything. She's not smart enough. I've got full coverage of the house. We need to move soon. I can't keep up this charade forever. He said we, Simone noted, looking up, multiple times, so he's definitely working with someone. But who, and for what? That's what we need to find out. She tapped her pen against her lips, thinking. You said he's in IT security. Does he have access to sensitive client information? Financial data? I guess. He never talks about his work, says it's all confidential. Because it probably is. And if he's planning something illegal, if he's stealing data or committing fraud, he'd need to make sure you didn't accidentally discover it. She leaned forward. The cameras aren't just about watching you. They're about controlling you, making sure you stay in your lane, don't ask questions, don't go where you're not supposed to go. The basement, the off-limits sanctuary where all his secrets lived. I need to get back down there, I said. I need to see what's on his computers. No. Simone's voice was sharp, absolute. That's exactly what he's expecting. You said yourself he has cameras pointing at the stairs. If you go down there again, especially at night, he'll know. And if he's planning something illegal, if he thinks you're a threat to whatever scheme he's running, you could be in danger. The word hung between us. Danger. It seemed melodramatic, the stuff of thriller movies, not real life. But the man who'd installed secret cameras throughout our home, who'd discussed me like a problem to be managed, who'd called our marriage a charade, that was exactly the kind of man who might be dangerous. So what do I do? I asked. We build a case, carefully, quietly. Simone pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. This is a guy I know, former FBI. Now he does private investigation work. He specializes in digital forensics and surveillance detection. He can sweep your house properly, find all the cameras, and more importantly, he can trace where the feeds are going. If Dominic's streaming this footage somewhere, if someone else has access, we need to know. I took the card, feeling its weight in my palm like a talisman. Marcus Webb, digital security consultant. A phone number, an email address. Nothing more. Can I trust him? With your life, Simone said. He helped one of the partners at my firm last year when her ex was stalking her. He found devices the police missed, and he's discreet. When should I call him? Tonight, from a burner phone. Don't use your cell. Don't use your home phone. Don't use your computer. She reached into her purse and pulled out a cheap prepaid phone, still in the package. I picked this up on my way here. I had a feeling you might need it. I stared at her, this woman who'd been my friend for over a decade, and felt a surge of gratitude so intense it brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. We're going to get through this, she said, squeezing my hand. But you have to be careful. Don't confront him. Don't change your routine. Don't give him any reason to think you're onto him. Can you do that? I nodded, though the thought of going home to that house, to that man, to those watching cameras made my skin crawl. One more thing, Simone said. Start documenting everything. Every conversation, every late-night disappearance, every weird thing he does. Write it down, but not on your phone or computer. Get an old-fashioned notebook and keep it somewhere he won't find it. At work, maybe. Or in your car. My car? I said suddenly. Do you think he put a tracker on my car? Simone's expression answered before her words did. We should check. Come on. Outside in the parking lot, in the glow of the overhead lights, we examined my modest sedan. It took Simone less than 5 minutes to find it. A small magnetic GPS tracker attached to the undercarriage, just behind the driver's side wheel well. She pointed it out to me, but didn't remove it. Leave it, she said. If you take it off, he'll know you found it. We need him to think everything is normal. I stared at the small black device, this violation of my freedom, my autonomy. He'd been tracking everywhere I went. For how long? Weeks? Months? Years? I feel sick, I said. I know, but you're going to be okay. We're going to make sure of it. I drove home on autopilot, my mind 1,000 miles away. The house was dark when I arrived. Dominic's car wasn't in the driveway yet. Inside, I turned on lights, moving through the space like I normally would, hyper aware of the cameras tracking my every movement. I heated up leftovers. I poured a glass of wine. I sat on the couch and opened my laptop, pretending to browse Netflix while my mind raced. Around 9, Dominic came home. He looked tired, stressed, his tie askew and his hair disheveled. "Long day?" I asked, the dutiful wife. "You have no idea." He collapsed onto the couch beside me, pulling off his shoes. "This new client is demanding, wants everything yesterday." I said, a non-committal sound, my eyes on the TV screen where I'd queued up a comedy special neither of us would watch. He was quiet for a moment, then, "Did you do anything interesting today?" It was a casual question, the kind of thing spouses ask each other, but I heard the edge beneath it, the real question. "Did you go anywhere? See anyone? Discover anything?" "Just the usual," I said. "Work, errands, home, graded some papers." All technically true. I had graded papers during my planning period. I just left out the part about meeting Simone, about finding the tracker on my car, about the burner phone now hidden in my school bag. "How about you?" I asked, turning to look at him. "What was the emergency?" For just a second, something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Suspicion? It was gone before I could identify it. "Database breach," he said smoothly. "Had to lock it down before the client lost everything." Another lie. I wondered how many lies we'd traded over the years without my realizing it. How many times he'd looked me in the eye and fed me fiction. "Sounds stressful," I said. "Want me to run you a bath?" He smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "You're the best, you know that?" The best fool, maybe. The best target. The best victim who didn't even know she was being victimized. I ran the bath, adding the expensive bath salts he liked, adjusting the temperature to exactly how he preferred it. While he soaked, I retreated to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The alarm clock with its hidden camera watched me. The smoke detector recorded my every breath. I smiled at them. A real smile, bright and empty. Then I turned on the TV and let some mindless reality show fill the silence. Beneath the covers, hidden from view, I texted Simone on the burner phone. "Made it home." He suspects nothing. Her response was immediate. "Good. Call the investigator tomorrow. Use a payphone if you can find one." "I will. Thank you." "You don't have to thank me. Just stay safe." I deleted the texts, powered off the phone, and slipped it into my pillowcase. When Dominic emerged from the bathroom, pink-skinned and relaxed, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. In bed, reading a book, living my small, monitored life. He climbed in beside me, kissed my shoulder, said goodnight. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. I lay awake for hours, the book forgotten, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, wondering how much longer I could maintain this charade. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., be ready. Webb." I deleted the text and set the phone face down. Tomorrow the truth would begin to emerge. Tomorrow I would find out exactly what kind of nightmare I was living in. I just had to make it through one more night. One more performance. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, acutely aware of the lens watching me from the smoke detector above the bed. Smile for the camera, I thought bitterly. Show them the loving wife, the trusting fool. Let them all believe the lie. Because soon, very soon, the performance would end. And when it did, Dominic would discover that his not-smart-enough wife had been playing a game of her own. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I told the school secretary I had a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie. The stress had painted bright spots across my vision and twisted my stomach into knots. Dominic had already left for the office by the time I made the call. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway, counted to 60, then grabbed my school bag and walked out the front door like I did every morning. But instead of driving to school, I drove to a gas station 15 miles away in a neighborhood I'd never been to. I parked near the back, away from the main pumps, and found the payphone mounted on the exterior wall. I'd thought payphones were extinct, relics of a previous century, but apparently some still existed for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency. I fed quarters into the slot and dialed the number on Marcus Webb's card. He answered on the second ring. Webb. His voice was deep, professional, no nonsense. My name is Shanice Reid, I said, using my maiden name instinctively. Simone Patterson gave me your number. She said you could help with a surveillance issue. There was a pause, the sound of rustling papers. Simone's friend. Yes, she called me last night. Said you might be reaching out. He'd been expecting me. The thought was simultaneously comforting and terrifying. This was real. This was happening. Can we meet? I asked. Somewhere private? Today? As soon as possible? There's a coffee shop on Reisterstown Road, the Daily Grind. Do you know it? I can find it. 1 hour, come alone. Don't bring your phone. He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding the receiver, listening to the dial tone, my reflection ghostly in the scratched metal of the phone booth. 1 hour. I had 1 hour to pull myself together, to be coherent and credible when I told a complete stranger that my husband had turned our home into a surveillance state. The Daily Grind was exactly the kind of place you'd choose for a clandestine meeting. Small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation office with high-backed booths and enough ambient noise to cover a conversation. I arrived 10 minutes early and ordered a coffee I didn't drink, choosing a booth in the back corner. Marcus Webb walked in at exactly 11 o'clock. I recognized him immediately, even though Simone hadn't described him. He had the bearing of former law enforcement, alert eyes that scanned the room before settling on me. He was probably in his early 50s, black, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of solid build that suggested he could handle himself in a crisis. He slid into the booth across from me without preamble. Mrs. Reid. Shanice is fine. Tell me what's going on, Shanice. So I told him. Everything. The midnight conversation in the basement, the cameras I'd found, the GPS tracker on my car, the feeling of being watched in my own home. He listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes in a small black notebook. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity, concern, professional interest? How long have you been married? He asked. 7 years. And you never suspected anything before last week? No. The admission felt shameful, like I should have known, should have seen the signs. He's good at hiding things. Most people are, when they're motivated. Webb leaned back, tapping his pen against the table. What you're describing is extensive. 20-plus cameras, GPS tracking, probable monitoring of your digital communications. That level of surveillance requires planning, technical expertise, and significant financial investment. Your husband isn't just checking up on you, he's running a full-spectrum intelligence operation out of your house. The clinical way he said it made it somehow worse. Why would he do this? That's what we need to find out. In my experience, this kind of behavior falls into a few categories. Paranoid jealousy, control issues. Or, he paused, choosing his words carefully, he's engaged in illegal activity and needs to make sure you don't accidentally discover it. Illegal activity, I repeated. Like what? Could be anything. Financial fraud, identity theft, hacking, sale of classified information if he has security clearances. The fact that he's in IT security is interesting. He'd have the skills and the access to do significant damage. My mind flashed to Dominic's home office, the servers and equipment I'd never understood, the clients he never talked about. He has several government contracts, I said slowly. He's mentioned working with defense contractors. Webb's expression sharpened. Has he ever asked you to sign any NDAs, non-disclosure agreements? When we got married, he said it was standard for his line of work, that I couldn't talk about his clients or his projects. Did you read it before you signed? I hadn't. I'd been so in love, so trusting, so eager to start our life together. No. We'll need to get a copy of that. It's possible you signed away more rights than you realized. He flipped to a new page in his notebook. Here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to conduct a full electronic sweep of your house. Find every camera, every listening device, every piece of surveillance equipment. I'll document it all, photograph everything. That evidence will be crucial if this goes to court. Court, I said faintly. Divorce court, at minimum. Possibly criminal court, depending on what we find. He met my eyes. Shanice, what your husband is doing is illegal. Multiple federal and state laws prohibit the kind of surveillance you're describing. You have grounds for divorce, for a restraining order, and depending on what he's using the footage for, he could be facing serious criminal charges. The room felt like it was tilting. I need you to understand something, Webb continued, his voice gentler now. Once we start this process, there's no going back. If I sweep your house, if we gather this evidence, your husband will eventually find out. And when he does, he will react. I can't predict how, but in my experience, people who go to these lengths to maintain control don't give it up easily. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to be prepared. You need to have a plan for when this explodes. A place to stay, money he can't access, support system in place. He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. This is a lawyer I work with frequently, family law specialist. She's handled cases like this before. I took the card. Miranda Chen, Esquire. Another lifeline in a growing collection. When can you sweep the house? I asked. Is he home during the day? No, he leaves around 7:30, usually doesn't come back until 6 or later. I can be there tomorrow, 2 o'clock. It'll take me about 3 hours to do a thorough job. Webb closed his notebook. In the meantime, I need you to act completely normal. Don't change your routine, don't move anything, don't give him any reason to suspect you know what's going on. I can do that. Can you? He leaned forward. Because most people can't. Most people, once they know they're being watched, they freeze up. They start acting guilty even though they've done nothing wrong. Every move feels suspicious. Every word feels wrong. Can you go home tonight and sleep in the same bed with a man you now know has been surveilling you? Can you smile and make conversation and pretend everything is fine? The challenge in his voice sparked something in me. Anger, maybe, or pride. I'm a teacher, I said. I spend 8 hours a day managing 30 teenagers while simultaneously tracking 12 different things and maintaining perfect composure. I can handle my husband. A small smile crossed Webb's face. Good, because if you can't sell this performance, if he suspects you're onto him, everything gets more complicated and more dangerous. We talked for another 20 minutes, going over logistics, safety protocols, emergency contacts. By the time I left the coffee shop, I had a plan. More importantly, I had allies. People who believed me, who understood the danger, who were prepared to help. I drove to school and spent the rest of the afternoon in my classroom, grading papers I could barely focus on. When the final bell rang, I gathered my things and drove home, making sure to take the exact route I always took, stopping at the grocery store I always stopped at, maintaining the pattern my GPS-tracked car would confirm. Dominic was already home when I arrived, earlier than expected. My heart jumped when I saw his car in the driveway, but I forced myself to stay calm. Normal, unsuspecting. Hey, I called out, carrying groceries into the kitchen. You're home early. He appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. Meeting got canceled. Thought I'd surprise you. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Suspicion? Or was I projecting, seeing threats where none existed? Well, I'm surprised, I said, putting away the milk. I got stuff for tacos. You hungry? Starving. He moved closer, wrapped his arms around me from behind. I forced myself not to stiffen, not to pull away. This was the test Webb had described. Could I maintain the performance? His lips brushed my neck. I missed you today. Missed you too, I said, and I was horrified by how natural the lie sounded. We made dinner together, the domestic dance we'd perfected over 7 years. He chopped vegetables while I seasoned the meat. We moved around each other with practiced ease, occasionally bumping hips, laughing at nothing in particular. To anyone watching, we were the picture of marital harmony, and someone was watching. The cameras captured it all. During dinner, he asked about my day. I told him about a student who'd finally turned in a long overdue assignment, about the staff meeting that had run too long, about my plans to start a new unit next week. All true, all safe. "How's your migraine?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" "You called in sick this morning. Migraine." How did he know that? I hadn't told him. Unless the school had called and left a message on our home phone, or unless he'd been monitoring my calls. "Oh, right. It passed by lunchtime. I ended up going in for the afternoon." "Glad you're feeling better." His smile was warm, genuine seeming, but now I analyzed every expression, every word, looking for the deception underneath. That night, we watched a movie on the couch, his arm around my shoulders, my head resting on his chest. Anyone observing would have seen a couple in love, comfortable in their shared space. Only I knew the truth. Only I felt the cameras watching, recording, storing away this performance for purposes I didn't yet understand. When we went to bed, he reached for me. I let him, playing the role of the affectionate wife, even as my mind screamed at the violation of it all. Afterward, he fell asleep quickly, his arm heavy across my waist. I lay awake, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, wondering how much longer I could maintain this charade. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Be ready. Webb." I deleted the text and set the phone face down. Tomorrow. Tomorrow the truth would begin to emerge. Tomorrow I would find out exactly what kind of nightmare I was living in. I just had to make it through one more night, one more performance. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, acutely aware of the lens watching me from the smoke detector above the bed. Smile for the camera, I thought bitterly. Show them the loving wife, the trusting fool. Let them all believe the lie, because soon, very soon, the performance would end. And when it did, Dominic would discover that his not-smart-enough wife had been playing a game of her own. The following afternoon, I left school at my usual time, stopped at the usual coffee shop for my usual order, and drove home along my usual route. Every action deliberate, every choice calculated to appear routine. The GPS tracker on my car would show nothing suspicious. The pattern of my life, unchanged. Dominic had texted earlier that he'd be in back-to-back client meetings until at least 7. I acknowledged the message with a simple thumbs-up emoji, fighting the urge to read subtext into everything he wrote. At exactly 2 o'clock, a nondescript gray van pulled up in front of the house. No company logo, no identifying marks. Marcus Webb emerged, carrying what looked like a large toolbox and a laptop case. I'd left the front door unlocked as instructed. He walked in without knocking, moving with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. "Mrs. Reid." He set his equipment down in the entryway and immediately pulled out what looked like a handheld device with a small screen and antenna. "I'm going to start with a baseline sweep. I need you to continue your normal afternoon routine. Make yourself a snack, check your email, watch TV, whatever you'd typically do. Act like I'm not here." It was surreal, going about mundane tasks while a stranger moved through my home with electronic detection equipment. I made tea. I sorted through the mail. I changed into comfortable clothes. All the while, Webb worked methodically, room by room, his device making occasional chirping sounds when it detected a signal. After 30 minutes, he called me into the living room. "It's worse than you described," he said quietly. His laptop was open on the coffee table, displaying what looked like a network map with dozens of red dots. "Worse how?" "I've identified 37 devices so far, and I'm not done." He pointed to the screen. "Cameras, obviously, but also audio-only devices, microphones hidden in outlets, in light fixtures, in the HVAC vents. He's not just watching you, he's listening to everything." 37. The number was staggering. Can you tell where the feeds are going? That's the interesting part. Webb pulled up another screen, this one filled with IP addresses and network traffic data. Most of the devices are routing through his home network, as you'd expect, but some of them, about a dozen, are also sending data to an external server. The traffic is encrypted, but I can tell you the server is overseas. Eastern Europe, probably. Why would he send footage overseas? Webb's expression was grim. That's the million-dollar question. Could be cloud storage. Could be something more concerning. Like what? Like he's selling it. The words hit me like a punch. Selling footage of me? It's more common than you'd think. There's a market for this kind of thing. Voyeuristic content, especially if the subject is attractive and unaware. I sat down heavily on the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Oh my God! We don't know that's what's happening, Webb said quickly. Not yet, but we need to consider all possibilities. He closed the laptop and looked at me seriously. Shanice, I need to show you something. It's going to be upsetting, but you need to see it. He led me to the basement door. I hesitated at the threshold, remembering my last trip down those stairs, the discovery of the cameras, the fear that had gripped me. Webb went first, turning on lights as he descended. The basement was exactly as I remembered it. Dominic's desk, his monitors, his equipment. This setup, Webb said, gesturing to the array of computers and servers along one wall, is way more than what someone would need for a home office. This is enterprise-level equipment, multiple servers, probably 20 terabytes of storage, commercial-grade networking equipment. He moved to the main computer and inserted a USB drive. I'm going to access his system. It's technically illegal without a warrant, but given the circumstances and the fact that you own this house jointly, we're in a gray area. Can you get in? Won't it be password protected? Almost certainly, but your husband made a mistake. Webb smiled slightly. He's using the same network security protocol I taught when I ran digital forensics training at the FBI. I know all the back doors. His fingers flew across the keyboard, typing commands I didn't understand. The screen flickered through several displays before settling on what looked like a file directory. We're in, Webb said. He started opening folders, his expression growing more serious with each one. What is it? I asked, moving closer. See for yourself. He turned the monitor toward me. The folder was labeled Home Surveillance and contained hundreds of video files, each one time-stamped and dated. I recognized the dates. They went back 3 years. 3 years of footage. My hands shook as I scrolled through the files. Webb opened one at random. The video showed me in the kitchen, making dinner, completely unaware I was being recorded. The angle was from above, from the smoke detector I'd identified days earlier. He opened another file. This one showed the bedroom. Me, sleeping. The timestamp showed 3 a.m. I felt bile rise in my throat. There's more, Webb said grimly. He opened a different folder. This one was labeled with strings of numbers that meant nothing to me. Inside were more videos, but these had been edited, cut together, scenes from different days spliced into sequences. Some of the footage showed me changing clothes, showering, private moments I'd thought were safe within my own home. He's been making compilations, Webb said, and these, he clicked on another folder, have been uploaded to the external server, multiple times. Why would he do this? My voice came out as a whisper. Money is the most likely reason. There are sites, dark web marketplaces where this kind of content sells for significant amounts, especially if the subject is attractive and unaware. He looked at me with something like pity. I'm sorry, Shanice. This is worse than standard surveillance. This is exploitation. I couldn't process it. Couldn't reconcile the man I'd married, the man who'd promised to love and protect me, with someone who would sell intimate footage of his own wife to strangers on the internet. Can you tell how much money he's made? Not from what's here, but we can make some educated guesses. If he's been selling content for 3 years with regular uploads, could be tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Tens of thousands of dollars from my violation, from my privacy stolen and monetized. I'm going to copy everything, Webb said, already connecting an external hard drive. All the files, all the network logs, everything. This is evidence, strong evidence, both for your divorce and for potential criminal charges. Criminal charges, I repeated numbly. What he's doing is illegal on multiple fronts. Surveillance without consent, distribution of intimate images without permission, possibly fraud, depending on how he's reporting the income. The FBI will be very interested in this, especially the international data transfer component. The basement suddenly felt too small, too close. I needed air. I stumbled toward the stairs, gripping the railing for support. Upstairs, I collapsed on the couch, my mind reeling. Webb emerged 10 minutes later, packing his equipment. I've got copies of everything. I'm also leaving a few of my own devices in place, completely undetectable. If he tries to delete anything or move files, I'll know immediately. He sat down across from me. Shanice, I need you to listen carefully. What we've found today changes the situation significantly. Your husband isn't just controlling. He's engaged in serious criminal activity, and you're the victim. You cannot stay in this house. Where would I go? Do you have family, friends who could take you in? My sister lives in Virginia, and Simone would let me stay with her. Good. Here's what I recommend. You have maybe 2-3 days before he realizes something's wrong. His system might have alerts set up, might notice the files were accessed. We need to move fast. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Miranda, it's Webb. The situation we discussed is worse than expected. I'm bringing someone to you within the hour. He hung up and looked at me. The restraining order will be served tonight. By the end of the day, Dominic Reid is going to be served with papers that bar him from coming within 500 feet of you. My mind struggled to keep up. But he'll know I found out. He's going to know anyway, as soon as the police execute a search warrant on this house, and they will be executing a warrant, Shanice. What he's done is too serious to ignore. He stood, offering me his hand. You can do this. You're stronger than you think, but we need to move. Now. I looked around the house that had been my home for 7 years, at the couch where we'd spent countless evenings, at the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, at the walls that I'd thought protected me but had actually been prison bars. None of it had been real. None of it had been safe. I stood up. Okay, I said. Let's go. I packed quickly, methodically. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, my grandmother's jewelry. I grabbed my important documents from the file cabinet in the guest room, birth certificate, passport, social security card, things I'd need to start over. Webb waited by the door, checking his watch periodically. 5 minutes, he called up. In the bedroom one last time, I looked at the bed I'd shared with Dominic, at the life I was about to blow apart. I should have felt sad, grieving. Instead, I felt clarity, determination. This wasn't my fault. I hadn't done this. He had. And now he was going to face the consequences. I grabbed my bag and walked downstairs. Webb held the door open. Ready? Yes. We walked out together into the bright afternoon sun. I didn't look back. Miranda Chen's office was in a sleek high-rise downtown, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an air of competent efficiency. She listened to my story without interruption, taking notes on a legal pad. Webb had sent her his preliminary findings during our drive over, and she'd already reviewed the evidence. This is one of the more egregious cases I've seen, she said when I finished. The surveillance, the exploitation, the financial deception. We have grounds for an emergency protective order, dissolution of marriage, and a substantial damages claim. I don't care about the money, I said. I just want to be safe. The money matters, Miranda said firmly. He's been profiting from your violation. You're entitled to compensation. More than that, we're going to freeze his assets, make sure he can't move funds offshore or hide them before the divorce is finalized. She pulled out paperwork and began walking me through the process. Emergency restraining order, filed immediately. Divorce petition, filed simultaneously. Asset freeze, police report. By the time we finished, my hand hurt from signing documents. The restraining order will be served tonight, Miranda said. I've already coordinated with the court and with law enforcement. They'll pick him up at your home. He'll be served, informed he cannot return to the property, and questioned about the surveillance equipment. What should I do? Nothing. You're going to stay somewhere safe. Simone's place, you said? I nodded. Don't contact him. Don't respond if he contacts you. Don't go anywhere near the house. From this moment forward, all communication goes through me. She handed me her card. My cell phone is on there. If anything happens, if you feel threatened in any way, you call me immediately, and you call 911. The weight of it all was crushing. This morning, I'd been a married woman, going through the motions of normal life. Now, I was filing for divorce, pressing criminal charges, blowing up everything I'd built. "This is the right thing," Miranda said, reading my expression. "What he's done to you is unconscionable. You deserve safety, privacy, dignity. We're going to make sure you get it." Webb drove me to Simone's apartment. She was waiting in the parking lot, pacing, her phone clutched in her hand. When I got out of the car, she rushed over and pulled me into a fierce hug. "Thank God," she breathed. "When you called, when you said what was happening, I was so scared." "I'm okay," I said, and was surprised to find it was true. I was terrified, yes, angry, violated, but I was also free. Free from the cameras, free from the watching, free from the weight of a lie I hadn't even known I was living. Webb carried my bag upstairs. Simone had prepared the guest room, fresh sheets and towels laid out. "You stay as long as you need," she said. "Weeks, months, whatever. You're safe here." Webb set down my bag and turned to me. "The restraining order will be served around 8 p.m. After that, things might get chaotic. He might try to call, might try to reach out through friends or family. Don't engage. Let everything go through your lawyer." "What happens next?" "The police will execute a search warrant, probably within the next few days. They'll seize his computers, his equipment, all the surveillance devices. Forensic accountants will trace the money, and the FBI will investigate the international data transfers." He paused. "This is going to be a big case, Shanice. What he's done, the scope of it, it'll likely make the news. You should be prepared for that." I hadn't thought about that. About my private nightmare becoming public knowledge. "I can help you prepare a statement," Miranda had said earlier. "Control the narrative, but that's down the road. Right now, focus on staying safe and taking care of yourself." After Webb left, Simone and I sat in her living room. She'd made tea, opened a bottle of wine, put out every comfort food she could find, but neither of us was hungry. "How are you really doing?" she asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. I feel like I've been asleep for 7 years and just woke up, like I've been living someone else's life. "You were living the life he wanted you to live, the life he was controlling." She took my hand. "But that's over now. Now you get to decide who you want to be." Who did I want to be? I'd been Shanice Reid, wife of Dominic, middle school English teacher, for so long. Who was I underneath that? "I want to be someone who's not afraid," I said finally. "Someone who trusts her instincts. Someone who doesn't ignore the warning signs." "You'll get there," Simone promised, "and I'll be here helping you every step of the way." At 8:15, Miranda called. "It's done. He's been served. The police are at the house now." How did he react? According to the officers, he was shocked, denied everything, became belligerent when they started talking about the surveillance equipment. They've detained him for questioning. Detained. My husband was being questioned by police. The surreal quality of the day intensified. "They'll probably hold him overnight," Miranda continued. "Tomorrow they'll execute the full search warrant. By the end of the week, we should have a clearer picture of the extent of his operation." His operation. That's what my marriage had been. An operation. A business venture with me as the unwitting product. "Try to get some rest," Miranda said. "Tomorrow we start building the case." I slept fitfully that night in Simone's guest room, waking at every sound, my heart racing. In my dreams, I was back in the house, and the cameras had multiplied until they covered every surface. Dominic stood among them, smiling, asking me why I was making such a fuss. "They're just cameras," he said. "What are you trying to hide?" I woke at dawn, disoriented, before remembering where I was. Safe. I was safe. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, all from Dominic. I didn't read them. I forwarded them all to Miranda and blocked his number. Simone made breakfast, but I could only pick at it. My stomach was in knots. At 9 a.m., Miranda called with an update. The search warrant had been executed. Police had seized Dominic's computers, servers, storage devices. They'd found exactly what Webb had described: hundreds of hours of footage, evidence of financial transactions, proof of uploads to external servers. The DA is reviewing the case now, Miranda said. There will almost certainly be criminal charges, multiple felonies. How much time could he get? I asked. If they pursue everything, 10 years, maybe more, especially if the FBI gets involved with the international component. 10 years. It seemed both impossibly long and nowhere near enough for what he'd done to me. The morning crawled by. Simone called out of work to stay with me. We watched mindless TV, played cards, did anything to pass the time. At 2 p.m. my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Shanice. It was Dominic's mother. Mrs. Reid. What have you done? Her voice was shrill, accusatory. How could you do this to my son? Have him arrested like a common criminal? The injustice of it sparked anger in my chest. Do you know what he did? What he's been doing for years? He told me about the cameras. He said it was for security, for your protection. He recorded me in the bedroom, in the bathroom. He sold the footage, Mrs. Reid. He made money from violating my privacy. Silence. Then quietly. You must be mistaken. I'm not. The police have the evidence. Your son is a criminal. You're tearing this family apart, she hissed. We welcomed you, treated you like a daughter, and this is how you repay us? I hung up. Let her believe what she wanted. I didn't owe her explanations or justifications. The truth would come out soon enough. That evening, the story broke. Local news, online outlets, all running variations of the same headline. IT professional arrested for surveillance of spouse. They didn't name me, but they named Dominic. They detailed the charges: unlawful surveillance, distribution of intimate images, wire fraud. The story was everywhere. My phone exploded with calls and texts from colleagues, acquaintances, people I barely knew. Everyone wanting details, offering sympathy, asking questions I couldn't answer. I turned it off, retreated into the safety of Simone's apartment, and tried not to think about the fact that my private nightmare was now public knowledge. Over the next week, more details emerged. The FBI did get involved. They traced the overseas servers to a dark web marketplace where Dominic had been selling content under a pseudonym for almost 3 years. They estimated he'd made over $80,000 from footage of me. $80,000. That's what my privacy was worth to him. The prosecutor offered him a plea deal. 20 counts reduced to 10. 15 years reduced to 8. He refused. He wanted to fight. His lawyer put out a statement claiming the surveillance was for marital security purposes and that I'd consented to being recorded. It was a lie, a transparent, desperate lie, but it meant we were going to trial. Miranda assured me we were prepared. The evidence was overwhelming. Webb's documentation was impeccable. We had the footage, the financial records, the network logs. We had everything. He's going to lose, she said. And when he does, you're going to rebuild your life. She was right. Over the following months, I did exactly that. I found a new apartment, a small but sunny one-bedroom in a building with excellent security. I returned to work and faced down the whispers and the stares with my head high. I wasn't ashamed. I hadn't done anything wrong. I started therapy, working through the trauma of discovering I'd been violated in my own home for years. It was hard work, painful work, but necessary. Some days I felt like I was making progress. Other days, the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But I kept going. I had to. The trial date was set for 6 months after Dominic's arrest. In the meantime, life continued. I taught my classes, I graded papers, I had dinners with Simone and long phone calls with my sister. I started dating again, carefully, always on high alert for red flags. I'd learned my lesson about blind trust. The divorce was finalized before the trial began. Miranda had negotiated a settlement that gave me the house, which I immediately sold, half of all marital assets, and a substantial payment for emotional damages. I didn't want Dominic's money, but I took it anyway. He owed me far more than dollars could repay, but it was a start. When the trial finally began, I sat in the courtroom and watched as the prosecution laid out their case. They showed the jury the cameras, the footage, the financial records. They called Webb as an expert witness. He explained the sophistication of the surveillance system, the deliberate nature of its installation, the clear intent to exploit. The jury looked horrified. Dominic's lawyer tried to paint me as a willing participant, suggested I'd known about the cameras, and consented. Miranda tore that argument apart on cross-examination, showing my genuine shock when I discovered the truth, the immediate steps I'd taken to protect myself. When it was my turn to testify, I told the truth. Simply, clearly, without dramatics. I described the marriage I thought I had, the moment I discovered the cameras, the violation I felt, knowing I'd been watched, recorded, sold. Some of the jurors cried. The defense didn't have much to work with. Dominic testified on his own behalf, a mistake according to court watchers. He came across as arrogant, defensive, unsympathetic. He claimed he'd installed the cameras to protect our assets, to ensure my safety. He couldn't explain the edited compilations. He couldn't explain the overseas servers. He couldn't explain the $80,000 in offshore accounts. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty, on all counts. At sentencing, the judge called it one of the most egregious violations of marital trust he'd seen in his career. He sentenced Dominic to 12 years in federal prison. 12 years. It wouldn't give me back the privacy I'd lost. It wouldn't erase the violation, but it was justice, of a sort. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to see Dominic's face one more time. Instead, I was in my classroom, teaching a unit on personal narratives, teaching my students about telling their own stories, about finding their own voices. When Miranda called with the verdict, I stepped into the hallway to take it. Then I went back to my classroom and finished the lesson. Because life goes on, even after betrayal, even after violation, even after your worst nightmare comes true. Life goes on, and you go on with it. Stronger, wiser, more careful maybe, but also more yourself than you've ever been. That night, I sat in my apartment, alone but not lonely, and thought about the future. There would be more healing to do, more therapy sessions, more sleepless nights. But there would also be good days. Days when I didn't think about the cameras. Days when I felt safe in my own space. Truly safe. For the first time in years. I'd survived. Not just survived, thrived. I'd taken back my life from someone who thought he could control it. And in doing so, I'd discovered something I'd lost somewhere along the way. Myself. My strength. My voice. The woman I was always meant to be. The cameras were gone. The watching had ended. And finally, mercifully, I was free. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. Thank you so much for your sweet support. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.